Today, as we celebrate the feast of St. Aloysius Gonzaga, he was known for what they refer to as his angelic purity, which is why we have the readings about being like the angels. And we have to be very clear because people continually mistake this point, and that is that when you die, and assuming you go to heaven, you will not become an angel. You don't get wings just because a bell rang. That doesn't happen. Made for a cute movie, but it's not reality. You will remain a human person. You were created a human person, you will remain that way. The angels were created angels, and they will remain that way. Which, by the way, there are no more angels being created. They were all created at the same time, before time began, actually, before material creation. And there are no more being made. The angels all made their choice, and they made that choice in one choice. Because remember that an angel, once he makes a choice, cannot change his mind. He makes it with his entire being. So just as we heard in the gospel that we will love God with our whole heart and soul and strength, well, if we choose the other way, we're going to reject God with our whole heart and soul and strength. And when it's 100%, there's no turning back. And so that's the part that we have to consider. If we're going to be like angels, we're not going to be married or given in marriage and so on, what does that mean? Because Scripture is very clear that heaven is a marriage banquet. So how is it that we're not marrying and being given in marriage? It's because Jesus is the bridegroom, and you and I are members of the bride. And so we don't get married to one another, but rather we will be united, each and every one of us, in an intimacy that is more profound than what a married couple already shares. By that, I don't mean the physical part, obviously, but think about what that means. When a couple enters into a sacramental marriage, their souls are united. You can ask yourself, how is it possible that we're going to have something even more profound than that? All of us, not just two, all of us are going to be united. And we are all going to be united with the Lord. And at that time, we will do exactly what Jesus said in the gospel are the greatest commandments. We will love God with our whole heart and soul and strength, and we will love our neighbor as ourselves. Because that's all that's going to happen in heaven. So when we look at somebody like St. Aloysius, the purity that he had, nothing could turn his gaze from God. So in the first reading, we heard about all the things that tempted somebody, but his treasure was the Lord. That's all that he cared about. Because he loved God with his whole heart and soul and strength, he loved the people around him. So he died 21 years old or whatever he was, because he was serving people who had gotten the plague. He was taking care of the sick, so it wasn't that he was sitting in a monastery, but rather, in this case, because his love for God was so profound, that overflowed into his love for a neighbor. For those in a monastery, that overflows through their prayer and penance on behalf of others. For those in a more active life, it is going to be found in service to others. So it's again something all of us can look at in ourselves. Am I loving God with my whole heart and soul and strength? St. John tells us that if we cannot love the brother whom we can see, that we can't love God whom we cannot see. So that's always the proof. That's the evidence. How much do we love God? How much do we love our neighbor? If we think that we want to love God, if we think that we're loving God, that's going to be shown in how much we're loving the people around us. And again, you have to think about what we just mentioned. Think practically for a second. In this life even, when you receive Holy Communion today, you were united with every other person who received communion. Jesus united himself to your soul, and he united himself to the soul of every other person who received him, which means in the Lord, you were united with every other person who received him. Not just here, everywhere. And so now we ask ourselves, if we're going to go to heaven, and we're going to be united with one another in an intimacy that is so profound that it's greater than the intimacy that we have already in marriage, then we had better love these people. There is no room for hating anybody, because in heaven you can't. But there are lots of people in this life that we do not like. We need to love them. Whether we like them or not, we have to love them, because we want for them to be able to get to heaven. And if we want them to be in heaven, that means we're going to be united with them in a bond that is closer than the sacrament of holy matrimony. Now that might make our skin crawl at the thought of some of the people that we would have to be united with. And if it makes our skin crawl, it's only because we don't love them. Jesus didn't say we had to like everybody. He said we have to love them. And if he loves them, why can't we? After all, if we're going to love him with our whole heart and soul and strength, then we have to love the people he loves. And we have to love them as he loves them. That's hard. But that's becoming like an angel. Because the angels, not having bodies, don't have the emotions, and they don't have all the senses, and so they don't feel any of the stuff that we do. For the good angels, it's just pure charity. Those people whom you do not like have a guardian angel just like you. If they have faith like yours, then they believe in the Lord just like you. And assuming that they're acting on that faith, then they love the Lord just like you, maybe even more than you. If that's the case, that means that God can love them more than he loves me. And yet I would be judging them and I would not like them. Something for us to think about. Because if we're going to become like the angels, which means, again, once the soul leaves the body, you cannot change your mind. You'll be like the angels. Once you're purified, for most of us, that means after a chunk of time in purgatory, then we will be able to love perfectly, just like the angels. We will love God with our whole heart and soul and strength. We will love our neighbor as ourselves, because all the selfishness will have been purified out, and that's all that's going to remain. Well, if that's what eternity is going to be, doesn't it make sense that that's what we should be striving for now? How easy it is for us to nurse all of our little hatreds, all of our judgmental things. That's not what we're to be about. So these are the kinds of things that we have to overcome within ourselves. Now you could look at it and say, well, I guess I'll just wait until purgatory to get rid of all that stuff. Bad attitude. Yeah, if there's stuff that needs to be purified out, you're going to be in purgatory and that's where it'll be removed. But why would you want to wait? Because what that means is that there will be a lower place in heaven for the rest of eternity, that you're going to love less for all of eternity. God didn't create you to love as little as you possibly can. He created you to love as much as you possibly can. And so that's where we want to start now. So at the very least, when it comes to the people that you don't like, somebody comes to mind and you find yourself grumbling and groaning or whatever it is that we do, or worse, because the mouth starts going, My goodness, it'd be nice if all we did was grumble and groan, but usually it's way worse than that. Pray for that person. Ask God to bless that person. Ask Him to help you to love that person. Initially, you might not even be able to do that if the dislike is bad enough. But at least if we keep working in that direction, we're going to be able to get there. And we can start chipping away then at these little things that stand in the way. Then we can begin the process of purification even now. And if that purification happens now, that means that we are able not only to grow in holiness and in virtue, but we're able to grow in that love. We're able to love with more of our heart and soul and strength. Maybe it's not our whole heart yet, but we've just made a step toward that. And then we just keep working in that direction. Find more people to pray for, find more imperfections in ourselves and start working against them. And little by little by little, we can chip all of that away. Then our purgatory will be very short, and our love will be very great. That's what we're looking forward to, the heavenly nuptials, where we will be able to enter into the love of God. We will be being loved by God. We already are, but we're not able to receive a whole lot of His love right now because our hearts aren't open to do it. There will be nothing in the way. So we will be being loved to the fullness of our ability, and we will love to the fullness of our ability. Loving God and loving neighbor 100%, and being loved 100%. That's what heaven is going to be. So let's start working toward it now. Working to look at our hearts and not try and figure out what percentage am I loving with, because that's useless. Just strive to love more so that we can, even in this life, get to that point we are truly loving with our whole heart and soul and strength.